right, welcome in. This is episode 3 of the Take Chances podcast. I am your host, Chance Mack. And here on the Take Chances podcast, we talk about 3 things: tech, culture, and people. So today, I am extremely excited to bring to you all not only a family friend, but Melissa Nixon is everything that you could imagine in terms of being a business professional, HR executive. Melissa's an executive coach. She's a chief of staff for a presidential candidate. I could go on and on about Melissa. Extremely impressive woman. And Melissa, will you just take a second to introduce yourself and say hello to the audience?
Hey, everybody. Listen, Chance, you just did it. I am so excited to be here today on this podcast. So this is needed and so much more is needed in this season right now. But yeah, you said it. I am an HR executive. I've been leading and working alongside executives for just about most of my career. Which has led me to the role that I'm in now, and coaching, authoring books, just trying to help people, all people, not just executives, be their best selves and learn how to, get out of, as we all do, get out of our own way at certain points in time. So
Absolutely. And I forgot the author aspect. And I actually read your book, Courageous Life, right? Yeah, I read it a few
that's
years
one of
ago.
them. But yeah, that was the first one.
Yes. So tell me, how many books have you written?
Gosh, I think I'm on like 4 now.
Wow. See, when I told
4 with
y'all
about maybe 70 to go.
70, wow. See, when I told y'all Melissa is just everything that you can imagine and everything you could want, and just a professional businesswoman, I just speak so highly of her because I'm, a fan, right? So, I want to start today's episode off with the quote of the day. And this quote comes from the legendary Gary Vaynerchuk. And the quote is, "Your legacy is being written by yourself, so make the right decisions." I'll say it one more time. Your legacy is being written by yourself, so make the right decisions. All right. That one's pretty straightforward. So in the past, I've always came with a deep business quote, and everybody's like, Chance, you know, that took me 30 minutes just to understand exactly what you're talking about. But this one is very straightforward. So your legacy is being written by yourself, make the right decisions, right? So with that being said, Melissa, let me just open it up like this. What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, wow. I love it. It's interesting because I think about that in everything I do, actually.
Mm.
You know, every role that I've ever had. I've been out of corporate for a long time, but when I was in corporate as an entrepreneur, every setting I go into, I think about what is the legacy. And the legacy isn't for me about mortality, of when I die, but when I'm no longer in that position and I've moved on to the next thing that God has called me to, what will people be, what will I be remembered by?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not dead. I've just moved on to the next, but what will my wake be, that I left behind? Will it be remembered fondly? Will it have made an impact? Will I have disrupted some things? Like, what are those types of things? Like, I firmly do not believe in just existing. So
Absolutely.
whatever you do, it's just like, what am I here for? What I want to make sure that the purpose that I was sent for was beyond fulfilled.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's deep. And I appreciate you just sharing that. So I want to get into your background a little bit and talk a little bit about how you grew up, and then we'll get into your career path and what you do today. So I know a little bit about your story because I know you personally, but tell us about how you grew up.
Yeah, so it's funny that I'm answering this. I actually grew up in Virginia, where I met your mom.
Yeah.
I always forget about that because, I've known her to be in Atlanta for so long now. But we actually met in Virginia, which is where I was born and raised, in Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, 757. Anybody out there?
Yeah.
And went to school in Virginia, University of Virginia, Summer Cavalier. And then from there, I've lived in a couple of other places: Charlotte, North Carolina. Now I'm in Houston, Texas, and really just grew up like, a lot of the other people, having fun in school, trying to figure out what I wanted to be in life, do in life. And as I was coming home from college, just wanting to make the right decisions,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to make the right decisions and do. Um, I've always been somewhat of a old soul,
Mm-hmm.
so my path was always kind of, fast forwarded, similar to what I see many of the millennials and now coming into Gen Z doing now,
Mm-hmm.
just coming out of college, running stuff, doing
Yeah,
it, So
absolutely.
that was me, back in the day. um,
Absolutely. I could
in the
tell.
past, thinking about things like home ownership and, all of that, and wanting to make just solid decisions
Absolutely.
from day one. I always, I think I want to say ever since I was in high school or college, I've always been about budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
My friends used to always tease me because they used to have this Excel spreadsheet that I would just look at, rearrange my little money, my little pennies back when I was before I even had a career.
Mm-hmm.
So just trying to do the best thing that I can in life so that I wouldn't have to look back and have mistakes to learn from or
Mm-hmm.
lessons to learn from that I'd seen, some do before me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about a huge thing that we talk about a lot on Take Chances podcast, and that's budgeting and just kind of, I want to have a whole episode tailored towards budgeting, and
Yes,
especially budgeting as a young person, because
yes.
like that quote said, the decisions you make today will affect your legacy in the future. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, how do you budget today? Let me ask you that. Like, do you use apps, or are you still using that Excel spreadsheet? Like, how are you doing that
Right,
today?
right. Yeah, I've used a couple of apps. I haven't really navigated to financial apps
Okay.
as much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But multiple accounts for different things. I want to, it's my friends always say, you embezzling money. I'm like, no, I'm not. I have an account for this, an account for that, because I always wanted,
Yeah.
I remember this is one of the first lessons I learned a long time ago. My family and I, we didn't do a lot of traveling when I
Mm.
grew up because finances were tight. It was just like, we weren't going to Disney World and, all
Yeah.
of that. And I lived in Virginia Beach, so we would go to the beach and stuff and we would go visit family, take the Greyhound to Delaware back,
Yeah.
when that was a thing. But I remember, gosh, I was in my early 20s. I think I just started my career. And we were wanted to go on a cruise, and
Mm-hmm.
that was the first time, for me prior to that point, it was the first time that I realized, oh, everything is manageable and doable if you just save for it. I
Absolutely.
just thought like, oh, we're not doing these things because we don't have. And it
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily, everyone has. Everyone
Yeah.
has. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of what you do with it, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember that year, and it was right after like 9/11 or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
where cruises were really cheap. But I put money aside, and took my mom and I, on our very first, cruise that we had ever been on.
Wow.
And it was that was my biggest lesson. Like, okay, you can do that if you do it, consistently over
Mm-hmm.
time. And I think when my mom turned 60,
Mm-hmm.
I surprised her with the trip to Hawaii.
Wow.
And that year I ate like bread and water, but
Yeah.
we did it. And it's
Yeah.
just, when you say like, how do I budget now? And I look at, what I do, it's everything. You can plan for everything,
Absolutely.
all of the expenses that, everything,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to get tires for your car.
Yeah.
Why wait? And then you be like, oh man, I gotta drop 500, $800,000 on tires. It's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah.
So take some of the Starbucks money, put it in a tire account, and make it happen.
You speaking to me right now because I need some new tires. You preaching to me right now. Like I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
it's
I'm
the balance
hit.
of
Yeah.
living life now and preparing for your future.
Absolutely.
Many people, whatever the age group,
Mm-hmm.
from Gen Z to the baby boomers,
Mm-hmm.
it's many people want to be able to live in the moment, live their best life,
Mm-hmm.
do all the things, post it for the gram, whatever that looks like. But at the same time, it's the balance of doing that and also preparing. I remember
Absolutely.
one of my friends, because I've always been, I love traveling,
Mm-hmm.
love traveling. And one of my, actually one of my college friends, my college roommate, she said one time, like, how in the world, like, are you going, you're going to Jamaica, you're going here, you're going there. But, it's just like, and it was just eye opening for her. I was just like, I saved for it. It's not like I'm
Yeah.
rolling in the dough. It's not like
Yeah.
I'm just waking up one day and being like, let's get on this flight, especially back
Yeah.
then when I, 10, 20, 10, 10, 15 years ago, I was saving for it. I was
Mm-hmm.
saving for it. And just, at the
So
beginning of the year, where do I want to go now? Where do I want to go this year? So,
yeah. Yeah, that's good advice, just about saving, and it's very practical, right? It's something that, a lot of people overlook, right? And they think that these trips and traveling
it's
is,
basic stuff. It's
yeah,
not rocket science.
yeah, yeah,
You can be out here in the most designer everything, and
yep,
look like it. And if you can do both, be designer and travel and, decorate your home and do all of this stuff, by all means, do it all. But something
yeah.
at some point you'll have to sacrifice.
Man, Melissa, if we were to cut the interview right there, I feel like, that is a nugget for my audience to really listen to, right? Those last 5 to 10 minutes where you're talking about saving and just, budgeting, just that whole concept of it. If you could just study that, you'll do light
No,
years
here's the thing.
yeah.
Studying is definitely something that people can do.
Mm-hmm.
But even better than studying is practicing it and doing it with
Absolutely.
consistency.
Yep.
Doing it with consistency.
Yeah.
Like when you look back over time over the course of the year, you can. So for me, what I hate is having missed opportunity,
Mm.
right? And be like and realizing if I had taken micro steps,
Mm.
I would have had a much bigger outcome.
Yeah.
Like, man, it's like you'll hear people talk about you could have saved, you know, how many ever thousands or even millions of dollars over time if you had started saving this much since college,
Mm.
and it could be, and the thing about it is it seems so small. You're like, that ain't gonna make a difference, so I'm gonna use that $50 for something else.
Yeah.
But then you realize, wait, $50 a week, even a month, whether that's $600 for the year, and you start doing some stuff with it, it makes, it's studying but practicing with consistency.
Practice.
That's the thing.
Absolutely.
It's doing it.
Practice. Yep.
Mhm.
So we're going to shift gears and talk a little bit about your career path.
Yeah. Mhm.
So talk to me about, your first opportunity in HR, or just kind of how you started your career. Did you have a lot of odd jobs that equaled out to, you starting in HR, or did
Mhm.
you go to college, then go to HR? Kind of talk to me about your start.
Yeah. So it's funny that you mentioned that. So I didn't really have odd jobs, but at the time, and it probably still is hard to get into. I'm not sure. HR was hard to get into,
Mm-hmm.
because especially when you're 21, 22, coming out of college,
Experience.
age old, you don't have any experience, right?
Yeah.
And so, what I would do is start temping. I started,
Mm.
like there was a local, I think like a local catalog company,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked seasonal in their HR department. But I was young enough that I could do that, right?
Yeah.
And then I took on a HR temp opportunity, I think as in recruiting or something.
Mm-hmm.
This is before I went to grad school, which turned into a full time position. And then I had the opportunity to go to grad school. And so,
Okay.
one of the areas of HR that I love, and that's my background, is org development. I love,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love org development and working with senior leaders and to execute change across the company.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out about it in grad school, so that ended up being my concentration. And
Yeah.
I took a break from HR to go to grad school full time, just because they were paying my tuition and I could work at the school and go to school and all of that stuff. And so that was like a 2.5 year break. And then it was time for me to get back into my field, and the timing was perfect because we were transitioning and going through a layoff. And I remember I started looking for opportunities, and I was open to relocating, but it had never really, crossed my mind. I was born and raised in Virginia. I had never really thought about leaving. And I started applying for jobs in other places. And I remember I got a call from a company in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'd been there once and I loved it. And, the rest is history. And so I remember gosh, I felt so young at the time. And my literally walking into that position, I remember my boss saying, "Okay, you have a meeting with the CIO, next week. He's having a team retreat, leadership retreat at his house, and you need to go facilitate it." And I felt like the ink on my degree was still wet. My stuff was still on a moving truck, and it was just one of those experiences. But I felt prepared for it, but I also felt so very new and so very green. But that was, a good amount of time ago. And here we are now. I was with that company, that retailer. It was a retailer across the East Coast, and I was with them for, I don't know, close to 10 years. But I've always had an itch for entrepreneurship. I've always been about ownership, whether it's been in business and property, and so when I took on the role, I never saw myself, oh, let me just stay here for the rest of my life and I'll retire and life will be good. I wanted to go out, on my own. And my prayer, Chance, has always been, God, never let me stay in a position longer than what I'm supposed to, but never let me leave before it's my time, because we can get antsy and just be like, I don't like it here, I'm out, but maybe your assignment there isn't finished yet, or
say that one more time. Say that one more time.
The prayer,
the prayer.
Yeah, never let me stay. Never let me leave. Never let me leave before. Never let me stay longer than what I'm supposed to. Never let me leave before it's my time.
Wow.
Because many people,
powerful.
millions of people right now, are in the positions they're in because they're comfortable. It's what they know. It's what they do. And I would beg to differ if it's the thing that God has purpose for them to do. But it's just like, okay, let me go get a check this week. Got to provide for my family, But then there are things that people feel aligned to, and I've always been big on that, So whether it was a role within the company, it's not necessarily always about leaving the company, but I just never wanted to be in something just because it's just what people do, is what I'm comfortable, all of that.
Yeah. So Melissa, I want to stay on that topic of, corporate and entrepreneurship. So, right now we're in 2020 and it's an uncertain job market right now. It's, millions of jobs have been lost. Some are coming back, but it's just still uncertain. So a lot of people are trying to transition out of corporate America to entrepreneurship. Any advice that you would give to my audience around just your transition from corporate to entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Don't quit your job. Don't quit your job. Entrepreneur. So first of all, don't pay attention to social media. All of your friends that will make the leap, make the jump, and they make it look so glamorous. And there is a lot of benefits to entrepreneurship. It is. But just like anything else, you got to put in the work, you got to put in the time. And it's a whole different skill set other than corporate. You're in sales, or you have been in sales at some point in your career. And so you're used to people, telling you no, and you figured out how to, most people don't have that level of background or tenacity or perseverance to deal with rejection, And so, I would say for people that are considering that, if they are still working right now, build while you work. Build while you work, Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be this hard leap, that you do. And like all of a sudden you turn in your notice and now you're just out here, and you don't have a way to provide for your family or even for yourself. And I get it, but I have come across a lot of people. We were just on the campaign trail and met so many entrepreneurs that had full-time jobs. We stopped into a local business, amazing, beautiful nail hair and nail shop in the heart of downtown, one of the cutest areas in Minneapolis. And I'm thinking this is what she does full time. Come to find out, she has another full time job. This was her,
Mm.
and it was more than a side hustle because they had a full brick and mortar client servicing. But it just goes to show that you can do both. And
Yeah.
not that you have to do both all the time, but many people will look at what others are doing and get a sense of excitement, get a sense of passion, and they're like, I'm just about to do this, without really preparing for the move. Because, and not saying that you can't ever go back, because that was one thing, that was the thing that helped me to make the leap, which was
Mm.
realizing if it don't work, if I don't like it, I go get a job, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing. Prepare while you are working. Don't wait until you get to your wits end, to feel like I just can't take anymore. I'm turning my notice now, you know.
Yeah.
And then for those that are already either looking for employment or you're not working right now, considering entrepreneurship, or maybe you already took the leap in a quick way. Listen, now is the time. Even there have been so many businesses, known businesses, that have started during a crisis, during an economic downturn.
Hmm.
That don't feel like, oh, people have made more money in the last 6 months. Than they have, prior to. I was reading the testimonial on in in a Facebook group the other day, and the woman was just talking about she's made more money in these last 6 months than she has in the last 2 years. So don't let the economy deter you, or stump
Absolutely.
your ideas.
Absolutely. So I was talking to one of my good friends. He's out of San Francisco. He works in tech as well, and he talks about he just started with a new startup selling COVID testing, and he talked about how their business went from 0 to 10 million in 6 months. So the money is out here. It's
Mm-hmm.
just about shifting your business and putting your business in position
Mm-hmm.
to receive it, right?
Yep. Yep.
So you talked about a little bit about the campaign trail. So introduce us to not only your role as the chief of staff, but the
Mm-hmm.
candidate you're supporting as well.
Yep. 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 So I am chief of staff for a presidential candidate. Her name is Jade Simmons. She's an African American woman out of Houston, and she started running for president in January of this
Mm-hmm.
year. And so we've been campaigning for the last 10 months. It's definitely been a journey and
Mm-hmm.
caused quite a stir. But I would not want to be anywhere else in my life doing anything but this, than
Wow.
supporting her and watching us do what we know we're supposed to do. No matter,
Mm.
despite what people think, we've gotten all kinds of, you're funded by Trump. You're working for Trump, I mean, the rhetoric has been absolutely ridiculous. You're just trying to split the vote,
Yeah.
and all of it, is farthest from the truth. But people don't know that unless you get to know her and the campaign and do the research.
Absolutely. So, that's really powerful, and for Jade to just be a African American woman, she's
Mm-hmm.
making history, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're making history, a lot of people, you know, always have something to say. So, I
Yes,
commend
yes,
you all for, taking that leap of faith, and in just advancing just the idea of a black woman becoming president, right?
yeah, yeah.
So talk to me a little. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say even more than a black woman becoming president, which would be that in itself is going to be amazing. But it
Hmm.
is disrupting a two-party system that isn't working for itself. You know,
Mm.
it's providing an option to the millions, providing a real option, right? So there was just an article that came out by the BBC on her that said that over 1,200 independent candidates have filed, to be president. Now, I would say, the majority of them aren't serious. They just do
Yeah.
it just to be doing it. But they featured three. One of them was her. But it's providing, that an option to a system in which millions of voters go to the polls feeling like they always have to vote between the lesser of two evils. And so, I am not, my background is not in politics. My background is in leadership. My background is in supporting executives and supporting women leaders to do the thing that they're supposed to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so watching this year unfold has been shocking. I can call it so many other things, but to really see on the front lines, the media only paint a picture of what they want to paint. Realizing, learning that all of the media that we watch, we see it because people are paying them to show it to us.
Yeah.
The networks are paid by either major. People are like, why don't I know about her? Where is she? Why isn't she on the media? Well, that's because when you're watching CNN or MSNBC or Fox or whatever, they're paid by one of these parties, major parties, to show what they want them to show,
Yeah.
And when you come up against someone who is a real disruptor, and competitive in a true competition, of course it's going to be a shutout. Most people can't conceive of a win of an independent candidate because it's never happened before. But we have to look at so much in 2020 has never happened before.
Absolutely.
When we shut down in mid-March, the whole country, many of us, my mom included, never been through anything like that before.
Yeah.
When the whole world stopped, when George Floyd died, and literally riots erupted worldwide. A social justice movement began worldwide. First time we've ever experienced anything like that. So at this point, even with a little less than 3 weeks before the election, anything's bound to happen. But it's just amazing to watch and see, what the reality is behind all the systems.
Absolutely. So you touched on a little bit about George Floyd and just the worldwide protest in relation to his death and his murder, right? So talk about, and you're in Houston, so George Floyd is from Houston. So talk a little bit about social justice and what young people can do to be a part of the change that they want to see.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things, and I remember, well, let me back up and just say, that moment, like, we all know systemic racism, and racism is real. We know it, we've seen it, we've experienced it. My heart, every time something happens, especially for our Black men, my heart goes out to those who are like my nephews, like you, who I'm just like, my God, in that moment, I just, even to think about it now, we were just in Minneapolis and had a chance to go to the memorial site where it happened, and to look in the eyes of that police officer's face, because I did watch the video, but to that look, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. And so the one thing that I think about now, because we take things from different generations, right? With millennials and Gen Z, the one thing that I love about that generation is y'all are disruptors. Like, y'all will be like, forget what we're supposed to be doing. I'm about to just go do this,
Yeah.
And I absolutely love it. But the other thing, you said what?
That's a gift and a curse.
It's a gift and a curse.
Yeah.
That is what I want to talk about. It's a gift and a curse. So when I think about the civil rights movement, that lasted for years. It lasted for years. And so there was organization to it. There was leadership to it. And so that would be the thing that I would think about now is what does our galvanizing look like? as a community. You know, how do we, the thing now is, I feel like in that movement, people were willing to be led.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't always have to be about let me. Not saying that this is why people do it, because people are absolutely have they just trying to figure out what's the solution.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have 1 million solutions, how do they all begin to start working for themselves? You know. So I remember we were like a week into the riots back in June, and I saw an Insta story that said the civil rights movement lasted, and it had like the years,
Mm-hmm.
from this year to this year, and it was like, close. I can't even remember now the exact amount of years, but it was more than, let's just go march in the streets,
Yeah.
for it. And then the other thing that I would say is, in addition to like organizing and galvanizing and building the momentum of a powerful movement, is to not settle for symbolism,
Mm.
to not settle for symbolism, you know. So it's great that corporations were going back and looking at, why have we allowed Aunt Jemima to be on the shelves for this long? Why have we allowed Uncle Ben to be, a part, adding to the systemic racism,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Caricature.
for so long? And so to change it, that's great.
Yeah.
But does that really change the system? Or does that change the outward face of the system? You know? So I would say we all have to, and it's not just what my advice to you in your network, but also for us, just what does that look like? How do we, I feel like we've been marching a long time.
Mm.
We've been marching a long time. They just had the 70th, 75th. What was the march in
That's,
Washington?
yeah, yeah. I remember. I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the years, but I know
Yeah,
it
it
was
was like
the March on Washington,
yeah, and
Martin
the
Luther
anniversary of
King.
that recently, and everyone went and we marched, and we galvanized there. Um, but I just what does that translate into? What does
Yeah.
that translate into?
Yeah, so I have a painting of Martin Luther King in my house, and I one of the key things that I think separates Martin Luther King from some of our leaders of today is Martin Luther King was he was enforcing legislation to be changed, right? Like, you know, we talk about, voter suppression. We can only imagine what that was like, 50, 60 years ago in the Jim Crow era, right?
Mm-hmm.
So being able to get um, African Americans, or just all minorities, people who are not, white men, the ability to vote is huge, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that's systemic change that has advanced the movement, and it allows for Jade to have the platform that she has today, right?
Right, right.
So that's, I think, what we need to, as young people, start thinking about. How can we affect long lasting change? But the only way that we can do that is to get that on the books, and that's through legislation.
Yep, through
So,
legislation. Mm-hmm.
yep. So, Melissa, I want to kind of circle the conversation back into just your career as an executive coach and as a leadership coach, right? So, talk to
Mm-hmm.
me a little bit about what you do for the business community and what you do for um, women leaders and minority leaders.
Yeah, yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, my background is in org development. Much of that was spent doing change management and working alongside senior leaders. So I found, as you go and grow through your career, you find that there are certain areas of it that you like the most, and tend to resonate towards. And working with women leaders was definitely one of the areas that I absolutely love, just because there is so much discrepancy,
Mhm.
between pay, between roles, especially for my corporate women. And so I'll never forget the first time I was promoted to a director in my corporate career. Just the experiences are just different. I remember I don't even know if I was given a job description. for my role. It was just like, here you go, we give you this money, we give you whatever. Um, and then
Make it happen.
you said what?
Make it happen.
Make it happen. Make it
Yeah.
happen. It was just like, how is that setting someone up for success, right?
Right.
So, and then I remember other times, for me, I always said there was never a class um, to prepare me when I was in college of how to be a young Black woman in corporate America. How to make money in corporate America. That you can negotiate your salary. You can really ask for like 50% more than what they're offering you. And, see, the answer is either going to be yes or no. Like, there was never anyone that told me that when I was younger. And there was never anyone kind of reaching back to say, hey, I know you're going for this interview, but here's what you need to do when you negotiate your salary. Now, we all have networks now and people and friends that can help and colleagues that can help, but I didn't have that. And so many of my situations were lessons that I had to learn. And I just remember wanting to teach other women. I just remember what it felt like when I reached certain levels, and not like I had like that. My boss wasn't looking at me saying and coaching. My boss wasn't coaching me, how to enter into rooms, and the experience that most women have, especially Black women, as you reach those levels. I remember going into the room. Guess what? We the only one, or one of few, but most of the time for me, I was, I was just the absolute standout. I was the youngest. And still, I'm like, even now, I'm like, why am I still always the youngest? So I was the youngest. I was the only woman, the only Black, the only this, the only that, and it was just learning how to deal with it on my own. And I wanted to be able to help women, women leaders, women executives, be able to just walk in that room and own that thing, man. Like, Joker, you belong there. You belong
Absolutely.
there. And here's how you own the confidence and to, I guess, bring alignment with the external positioning. So yes, you're there, but how do you walk in and, one, not only look the part, but know that you're supposed to be there, but know that you add value. How to deal with when people feel like make you feel like you're not adding value, or try to just talk over you, or just all the things that come with corporate politics, and helping to navigate that. I'll never forget one of the things. And even with all the titles that we get as we gain through our career. I remember one of my clients had just been promoted to a VP, and so as you grow in your career, you start getting promoted into other functional areas that are outside of your sweet spot. So she
Mm-hmm.
had a career in HR, but now all of a sudden she was leading a team in a huge budget over operations, and she felt like a fish out of water. So most of our time in the beginning, we spent help redirecting exactly why she was hired for that role, and working on her confidence that you're going to be great at this job, just for the simple fact of, here's why they hired you. You don't have to know all of operations. They hired you for these reasons. Here's what you need to do more of. And then being able to allow your team, who are the experts in it, handle the other parts of it. But here's why, so it's making all of those connectivity points and mindset and how we show up and how we think. So that's just been a huge passion for mine. Because here's one thing I know, Chance, is when men and women own that confidence, the whole game changes.
Mm.
The whole game changes. The longer we sit in insecurity, the longer we sit second guessing, the less powerful we have to show up in that moment. The less powerful we are in that moment.
Absolutely.
It's just one of those things of, you can sit in that moment and wonder, what are they thinking about me? What if I say the wrong thing? Or, what if it's not right? You can, all that mental energy
Mm-hmm.
versus, and it's different. I'm not saying that white men don't go through it, but they don't go through it as much. We will talk ourselves out of something. We will talk ourselves out of not applying for a job because we don't have the second master's degree, versus some joker. is got a GED, and he like, listen, let me go and be the VP of this thing, right?
Yeah.
Why can't that be us? Why
Right.
can't that be us?
Right. It's so true. Confidence is key. And
Mm-hmm.
when I first started in tech, um, I wish I would have thought about you and just kind of uh, reaching out to you for some executive coaching or just some leadership coaching in general,
Yeah.
because, when I first got into tech, I experienced some of the same things. I was the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, I was learning a new skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started to learn, my confidence started to go down and go down because I was just a fish out of water, right? It wasn't
Yep.
what I was most comfortable with. And so then I started, to take on the imposter syndrome. Like, why am I here? I don't, all these different things. But through being broken down to the core, I feel like I found myself, right? And I rose from the ashes like a phoenix. And now I'm able to speak in a way that's authentic to me, and be a voice for my community, educate and expose my community to opportunity. I feel like that's my purpose and my passion.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm able to expose or um, show younger people that you can be yourself, you can be authentic and have confidence and be strategic, be a strategic leader. And so I appreciate you sharing that advice, but then also just being um, who you are to the community, right? Who you are to these women leaders, who you are to minority leaders. So I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And I mean, I wouldn't, I can't see myself. I feel like no matter what I do in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I, whatever aspect of my career, that part of it will always be a part of it. I could go say I'm gonna go start a bar in Jamaica and just go live on the beach. I'm still gonna be out there talking to the tourists like, what you doing with your life? How you showing
Yeah,
up?
yeah,
How what's going
that's
on?
natural.
So because it's who I am. It's who
Hmm.
I am.
Absolutely. So, Melissa, where can people find you? What's the best way for them to stay in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm in all the places, all the places. I would say first, I would love for you to find, as people listen to this over the next couple of weeks, find the campaign for Jade Simmons. It's operationrestoration2020.com. And just know that you have options. You vote for who you want. Vote for who you feel like you believe in. Most people right now are voting out of fear. We know that we have to get Trump out. We have to get Trump out. They don't even know why they like Biden. They just know they got to get Trump out. But, I wouldn't necessarily say if we repeat what we've always done, we're going to get what we always got, you know? And so I would look at, so that's operationrestoration2020.com, where you can learn more about Jade Simmons and her policies. And then for me, I'm at courageouslifeacademy.com. And I'm online everywhere. Melissa J. Nixon, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those places.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, we're going to wrap the Take Chances podcast up. This is episode 3 with Melissa Nixon. Melissa, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast and, sharing wisdom from everything from, personal finance to business, how to navigate your career,
Mm-hmm.
to just your services that you offer in relation to leadership coaching, executive coaching, and the
Mm-hmm.
importance of voting, social justice, all the different things that we talked about on this podcast, was a true gift to me as an interviewee or interviewer and a conductor of this podcast. And I want to say, uh, take chances to everybody that's listening to this podcast.